Oh my goodness. How are you? It's what? Not even, what is today? It's the 13th. It's like 11 days until Christmas. And I am sitting here between coaching clients, between podcast things, because you guys, it's been bananas trying to get caught up. I have not wrapped a single thing. I'm hoping to accomplish that this week or maybe this weekend or sometime because Santa is coming and he isn't ready. But I had to step in here. I just got off a call. I'm cooking my jeans like a witch on the stove, trying to get them back to black, and I'm hungry. But I haven't talked to you guys on a live in far too long. So I wanted to come and talk to you guys a little bit about imposter syndrome just for a few minutes before I move on to what happens next in my day, because I have like 5 or 10 minutes and that's not very much time. But let's just talk about imposter syndrome, what it looks like, how you might experience it, what it might be like in your life, and what I can do to help you feel better right now and in the future if you decide you want to look at coaching. So this week, if you caught my podcast, I talked all about imposter syndrome. And usually the way that I choose my topics, it's either something that y'all request, which please keep those coming. You can always leave those messages on Facebook. Every once in a while, I'll have like a thread where you can put on there, hey, I'd really love to hear an episode about whatever, or you can just message me. But sometimes I take the content for my podcast from coaching calls that I've done or from consultation calls that I've done. And twice, the week that I recorded that, in 2 separate times, it came up, this idea of imposter syndrome, which is why we had a whole episode on it. So let's just start by nailing down what exactly imposter syndrome is. If you're like, maybe, but I'm just not sure. It's basically just a condition where people who are high achieving, who are doing incredible things, just feel really anxious about their success. They doubt their capability. They don't think that they're actually as great as everybody thinks they are, or they feel like someone's going to find out that they're a fraud. So sometimes this looks like I'm a mom and everybody thinks I'm killing it, but they don't know that my kids had a meltdown last night. I'm failing. That's totally not true. It might be, oh my gosh, I run this incredible business, but if everybody knew how messy it was in my book system, or that I didn't really actually know everything about this one part of my business, then they wouldn't know that I'm actually not as good as they think they are. I think I used the example on the podcast episode of somebody that would own a bookstore, and their thought might be, if I can't tell you exactly where the book is in every other book by that author, then I'm not doing a great job. Or if you owned, or if you're a teacher, for example. So I taught history. I've taught every subject now. I agreed to teach personal finance next year for just one semester. So I will have taught, I think, just almost everything that you could teach. But say, for example, when I was teaching history, if I couldn't tell my students every single thing about history on the spot, like right now, and that would make me a terrible teacher. None of that's true. But when you have imposter syndrome, it's things like that. It's the things that you say to yourself about what you are actually capable of, or what people will think about you, that causes you to feel like a fraud or a phony, a liar, a sneak, somebody's going to find out. So these are just different ways that you can identify that in your life. So something that you might see, I spoke with a woman who is running her own business who felt like she was a failure because she was working so hard. She felt like her coworkers thought that she wasn't a good boss. She thought that she had to do everything to make it perfect all the time. And this is just a really common, and it happens to so many people, whether you're running a business or your business is raising your babies, which is huge business. Let's not negate the fact that that is a full-time and a half-time and a double-time job. You don't ever get a break, okay? So, but recognizing that, hey, this is actually imposter syndrome doesn't necessarily stop those thoughts from happening, because it just leads you into this cycle of creating coping mechanisms like doing more, or trying harder, or like doing other people's work, or trying to hide what you're doing, things that will keep you from being seen, that make you feel like, okay, well, maybe nobody's going to find out that I actually am terrible at whatever it is that I do. It can also cause you to self-sabotage. And self-sabotage happens when you just quit on purpose, where you might say, oh, yeah, you know what? That didn't get done, and you purposely didn't do it. That way you can say, okay, now they'll know. I actually didn't do that. I'm going to make sure nobody finds out by exposing myself as the giant fraud I am, which isn't true. And you're the only person that's seeing it that way. We don't see, a lot of times we don't look at somebody else doing something and think, what a failure. We think they're killing it. They think they're failing. We're both wrong. We're kind of both wrong, right? Like, they're barely holding it together. They look like they're killing it because they're killing themselves trying to keep up and stay hidden. They think that they're failing because they aren't quite perfect enough, or they aren't doing everything exactly, or they don't know every ounce of information. But the struggle is real, and the cycle just goes around and around and around. And it's a coping mechanism, and then you feel anxious again, and then you go back to the coping mechanism. So some people struggle to try and feel perfect every single time. Other people think that they have to know everything. But even when somebody is incredibly successful, and let's just be honest, you can't have imposter syndrome and be a giant failure for reasons that I hope are obvious, because the people who feel like an imposter are actually achieving. They're actually already doing very well. So even when successful people with imposter syndrome like downplay how well they're doing, or they downplay their achievements to stay hidden, we already see them as being successful. We're like, oh my gosh, they're so modest. And that almost fuels the imposter syndrome instead. So they continue to work more, they continue to do more, and then they get to this place of burnout, or they start to feel really depressed or anxious. And again, we go back to self-sabotaging. So if we stick with those same coping mechanisms of overworking and people-pleasing and perfectionism, eventually you're going to burn out. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to hate the job that you used to love. You're going to hate the business that you've always wanted to own. You're going to resent your kids and be like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I signed up for this mom thing. You're going to miss out on incredible memories. And we don't want any of that. Because again, I've told you guys this a million times. I believe 100% that we were all created to do incredible things, incredible work. Sometimes we don't ever even know exactly what that is. But if you're working yourself to death and telling yourself that you're not worthy, that you're no good, that you're not perfect enough, you're not good enough, people are going to find you out, you're negating all of your gifts and your incredible abilities that you've already proven that you have because you're already successful. So this is what I do. In my coaching, I help people set goals. Like, what do you want to experience? What would make you feel successful? And what would you have to believe about yourself? We start finding the things and the thoughts that make you feel anxious. Maybe it's overworking. Maybe it's trying to be perfect. Maybe it's hiding. Maybe it's not just being able to say, thank you, and mean it. And we work on changing the thought patterns that you have about yourself, about the fact that, like, I'm not the person they think I am. Okay, so we use things like mindfulness, we use things like meditation, we use things like just talking about the things that you're already killing at doing it, and being compassionate for when you mess up. And we really get to the point where I'm going to challenge you to do something that's going to make you fail on purpose. And you choose to fail. Because somehow in this world, we have decided that failing means that you are a failure, when in all actuality, failing means that you are learning and getting stronger. So we're going to find ways that you can fail on purpose with little teeny things and not make it mean anything bad about you at all. We start proving your anxiety wrong by challenging your anxious thoughts, by taking really purposeful, tiny steps towards the goals that you want. And before long, you notice that you're actually really proud of yourself, and you notice that, like, my business is really cool. It's really good. People love it. They come to my business because they know that I'm good at this thing. And that's when you know that you're moving through imposter syndrome. And you'll notice that you have more energy. And you'll notice that you're not anxious all the time, and you're not stressing out. And suddenly you start to love your job again. If this sounds great, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is me. How does she know this is me? Because a lot of people have it. That's how. If you want to talk about how I can help you with this, it's so super simple. All you have to do is message me here on Facebook or on Instagram, wherever you're watching this, and just say, hey, can we talk? And I'll say, sure, let's find time on the calendar. And I know things are busy right now. I know that it is the holidays and you've got parties and school performances, and you're trying to finish up the year at work with books, and you're trying to deliver all of the packages and all of the flowers and all of the foods, if you're a caterer or whatever it is that you do, and you're trying to finish up the semester if you're a teacher, and my God, I haven't wrapped anything, and my kids, I'm not even done shopping. All of these things are going on, and you still have to take care of yourself. So let's find an hour in there that works for you to be able to talk about how we can start moving forward. You got an hour. I promise you do. We can make it work. So message me, let me know you want to talk, and we will get that on the books, and we will start talking about how you can feel really solid about yourself. Okay, you guys, it is back to my regularly scheduled day. I got stuff going on. I am going to interview an incredible coach here in just a couple of hours. That's coming up in next week's podcast, actually. I'm trying to remember what order I put things in. So next week, I'm going to have an amazing interview with somebody. I cannot wait to introduce you to her. You're not going to want to miss next week's episode as well if you want to learn about having difficult conversations with people, which I'm going to learn a lot on this one because I also don't like to have confrontational, difficult conversations. We'll see what I learn, and you are sure to be learning right along with me. Make it a great day, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.